Welcome to today's CrossLink webinar, utilizing best practices while providing essential services to your clients. My name is John Amaya, and I am working today with Steve Kratzky, our Director of Learning. So with that, Steve, I am going to turn this over to you at this point.
Well, thank you, John. Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and shove off. And as John said, we're going to take about 35, 45 minutes or so, present you with some very important information, and hopefully we'll answer a lot of the concerns and questions you might have. And then beyond that, we'll open it up for some questions that you might have of us. So what we'll cover today is, first of all, essential services. You are an essential services means being open and being available. We're going to talk about that for just a couple of minutes as a precursor to the persona that you want to convey as a professional. Then we're going to start talking about what are some of the best practices in your office during this new normal that's going on right now. We'll even touch on best practices if you're providing your services remotely. We're going to talk for just a couple of minutes about the potential ramifications of having a lax approach this year. This is a year unlike any other, and because of that, we have to be very diligent in our approach to how it is that we prepare for and deliver services. And finally, putting it all together and some closing thoughts. As I said before, and John said, we'll cover this all in about 35, 40 minutes or so. And again, leave some time at the end should you have any follow-up questions for us. So we hope that there's some things that every single person that's on this call will be able to take away that they can use in their practices. And so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're talking about. We start with tax preparation as an essential service. And a lot of people don't even realize that that's the case. And what do I mean by that? The federal government, by way of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, has actually identified financial services as being essential. And during this pandemic, and one of the questions is why? Why would we be considered, or the businesses that we do, considered to be essential? Well, it's quite simple. Whenever the government is looking at what it is that has to be provided, they look at it from a couple of different perspectives. First of all, obviously, they want to make sure that they're minimizing exposure to COVID-19. This is a very real issue that's out there right now. But second of all, and as important, is they want to keep as much of the economy going as possible and to retain the fabric of that economy so that when in recovery, we don't go into a long, prolonged recession. So financial services play this incredibly important role because we help people get back to a normal whenever that time is that the cure is found and we come out of some of the restrictions with regard to where people can be and what they can do. Okay? So while the federal government has provided a list of essential services, it is so important that every single one of you, you're calling in from all different parts of the country, it is very important that you also check with your regional and state governments for local guidance. In many instances, they may provide some additional things that you're going to have to consider. Always keep your finger on the pulse of those types of things as well. So, continuing during this prolonged period of uncertainty, your community actually needs you, and to a great deal. What is it that I was saying by that? Both existing and new clients are potentially looking for guidance on what to expect with regard to the 2020 tax return. The tax returns could look very different, and even the start date of the season could be different than we've ever seen in the past. On top of that, they're looking for information regarding additional taxpayer stimulus programs. We know that those are on hold, but you know what? They're going to break pretty soon. I really believe that, but I don't have a literal crystal ball. But as information about future stimulus packages come out, you're going to need to be informed because your marketplace is looking for you for that type of information. They're looking for assistance in completing tax returns from previous years. People are going to begin looking for revenue sources wherever it is they can find them. And to be honest, they're really looking for your knowledge. They're looking for your counsel. So it's so important to understand in this time of uncertainty, the more certainty you can provide and the more information and the more knowledge you can provide, you're going to be of value not only to your existing clients, but to other folks as well in your particular area. In fact, simply put, being available to your community now at this time can help your long-term growth of your business because people are going to be looking for sources of valuable information and accurate information. There's been a lot of information out there that's untrue or is incomplete, maybe is a better way to put it. So whenever you have or whatever you have, people find that valuable. Okay? So with that, it's all about how you want people to see you, the persona that you want to convey to your marketplace. And what does we mean? Tax preparation and financial planning, they're not just part of the financial sector. You are all very much part of what is considered to be personal and professional services as well. That's huge. It's very important to understand that people see you differently than they probably see a grocery store or anything along those lines. You're providing a very personal and professional service to these people. The point being that both clients and observers alike are evaluating how you present yourself and your business during this time. More specifically, you want to actually be seen as confident. You want to be in control of the situation to the greatest extent possible. You want to be seen as being very easy to do business with, whether in your office or remotely. You want to be seen as convenient, and you want to be seen as consultative. We talked about this already. People are just looking for knowledge, for information. So if you're knowledgeable and well-informed in this time of confusion, you put yourself at a position of advantage. To achieve a perception of this confidence and convenience and consultation that we talk about, you need to implement a communication strategy. That's simple. Your clients and prospective clients know that you are open for business. You absolutely want to do everything in your power to have people see you as being available. So remove physical and virtual references to being closed. You'll want to do that at every turn, whether you have an actual office space or if you're working remotely. Update your websites and any social media platforms. John and I are constantly looking at these types of things. He is the leader of our marketing efforts, and me leading our training. We oftentimes look to see how our customers are presenting themselves. It's very interesting. One of the first things that people oftentimes overlook is their phone messaging, their website, any kinds of things like that make reference to being closed, even if it's for short term. Get those to make sure that they are showing that you are open. Remember that you cannot over communicate your availability. It's impossible. During this time, you want to make sure everyone knows that you are open for business. And think of it in this terms. Think open, not closed. And at every single term, think available, not remote. On top of that, you'll want to use technology. And technology is fascinating stuff. It can really help you present yourself as being professional, available, and well-informed. And so technology can deliver outstanding resource management tools to you. On top of that, it can leave a perception of integrity to your external audience. It can present an excellent return on your investment, especially as it pertains to your time. Time is one of the most valuable commodities that you have right now. We have very limited time before the season starts. You want to use it to the greatest extent you possibly can. Using technology to help you can give you an excellent return on that investment. You can always manage the marketplace or better manage the marketplace by using technology. And it's so important to see what the marketplace is looking for, what your people are looking for. But at the same time, it's even more important to find out what they're saying and thinking about you as a business. So reading along with it, you can also manage the marketplace. And that's very important. But also find out what people are saying about you and your particular business. That's extremely important. And remember, if you choose not to use technology, you're going to risk falling behind in the game of marketplace perception. Let me give you a great example. And John and I were just looking at average tax professional businesses in a particular area. It didn't even matter which city this was in. But take a look at this, a case study. We looked at 2 tax practices and looked for reviews. That's all we did. We just went and we looked for reviews. And in doing so, this is what the first tax practice looked like. This information was available, and you notice it could be edited, and that information could be provided by the business itself, saying, hey, we are open, we're here to serve you, all those types of things. The second business we looked at looked like this. Now, when you take a look at these 2, which one are you going to call on? It's pretty obvious that or at least I will speak for myself, I'm going to always want to go to the business that has presented itself as being available and open for business. And literally, these were just the two first tax practices we looked at, just kind of doing a search engine in a particular city. And the differences between how they presented themselves were staggering. And they have such a profound impact on how people will see that. Yes, sir.
If I could add to that, I mean, folks, this was a real simple, all we did was go to Yelp and for a particular market and type in tax office. That's it. And these are the first 2 that popped up. So you do have the ability, as Steve said, to put forth a persona that you want. We're not here to tell you one's right or wrong. We're just here to let you know what the opportunities are before you. And you can see a definite difference between these 2. And for all intents and purposes, these could be identical tax offices, right, Steve? We just don't know.
Absolutely.
All we know is that we're looking up for reviews on which one to call. And as a taxpayer, as Steve said, it's pretty obvious which one we would call if we had a concern about COVID-19 in our area.
And what's very interesting is the statistics are rather astounding with regard to how many people will go online and do a search before going to a particular professional service. It is a very high percentage of people will look for these very things. So managing that, not just what the marketplace is looking for, but on top of that, how they are seeing you and protecting yourself against these things will have a huge impact on your business and how many people are going to come to see you. Now, finishing up with regard to your persona, it's really important to understand that communication is the front door. It is the strategy. It is the key. You're going to have a solid communication plan, and John is going to take you through a lot of this in more detail here shortly. But your communication strategy is absolutely of paramount importance. But at the same time, you know what? Think of that as the front door. The way that you communicate, how people can communicate with you is literally the front door to your business. But you must do everything you can to stay informed as well. That's right behind that front door. What is it that we mean? Only by staying informed will we remain relevant to your clients and the marketplace itself. There's so much information out there, and there's so much information that's going to be changing over the next few months. In fact, next week, I'm going to be doing a webcast. I hope many of you will be joining us for IRS and tax law updates. We're going to be doing that next week, but there are so many things that are changing that we're actually going to be doing that webcast again in January. Why? Because between now and then, there could very well be some things to change. So only by staying informed will you remain relevant in the eyes of your clients as well as the marketplace itself. To consider all the resources that are available to you. We were talking about technology just a moment ago. Don't hesitate to look at these things, study these things, and continually make reference to them. Number one, IRS government website, very important. On top of that, we here at CrossLink and CrossLinkTax.com is a wonderful resource that you can go to. You will find all kinds of information, not just about webinars, but all kinds. We've got a resource center specifically dealing with things having to do with what's going on right now in this, quote, new normal, as well as tax law updates. And then finally, use search engines. Use things such as Google to go ahead and look for state-specific information. The more information you have, the more value you become, the more valuable you become, the more your business will grow. So your persona is key. Again, if I were to bring it back, you want to be seen by the marketplace as being confident, as being convenient, and also being consultative, meaning that you're knowledgeable in what it is that you have to share with people. You know what? Those will go a long ways during this time of uncertainty. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into even greater detail. We're going to start talking about some of the best practices during this new normal in your office itself. And with that, John?
Thank you, sir. And before I get going, I was on mute earlier and didn't realize it, but Steve, I was going to add something to what you were saying earlier about making sure everybody knows you're open. One of the things that we see on a regular basis here that I would encourage all of you to look at are out-of-office responses to your emails. And a lot of times people set those up to say, hey, I received your message, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But what we've seen during this COVID era is that people are now putting things on there that state things like, our offices are currently closed, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And again, what you're communicating is that you're not available. Even though the intent is to let people know that it might take a little longer, you have to think about how that's being received on the other end. And so what you want to do, every opportunity you have for a successful season, is communicate that you are open. So there is no need for that out-of-office response because you are going to respond, and you are going to respond in a timely manner. So that's just something to keep in mind as we move forward there. All right.
Remember, John, that's a great point. Out of office responses, make sure that let's say you even want to put something for a weekend, even on your phone messaging. Come Monday, make sure that you've taken that off. You never want to leave any kind of indication that you're not available, especially when you really are available. It's so important.
That's correct. All right, Steve, I'm going to let you drive here, and we'll move forward. So what we're going to do, and folks, I'm going to give you a PDF of the section I'm going to cover right now. So if you're wondering if you're going to get a copy of this, yes, I'm going to send you a PDF that covers many of the same topics we're about to cover right now. But really what this is what's essential for all of us is we need a playbook. Tax preparers need a playbook going into the season. There needs to be a recognition on COVID-19. What we mean by this is there are considerations that are unique for this upcoming tax season. We dealt with them last tax season. And for the purposes of this call, it doesn't really matter how you feel about the news coverage for COVID-19, how you feel about how we're addressing it as a nation. That's not really relevant in this particular case, because all we care about is getting our tax-paying clients completing their returns and moving forward. So what can we do to address those unique challenges, not just in terms of the timing of the tax season, which seems to be when all of this happens and when stimulus payments and other things come through, but meeting the needs of your employees so that you and your employees can address the needs of your clients as we move forward. All right, Steve, I'm going to let you touch on this. We're going to cover several bits of information here, including how you're going to gather that information, some things you can do to create a safe environment, not just for you, not just for your clients, but for your employees as well. And talk about what's involved in making that plan. What are some of the considerations that come into play? We talked a little bit earlier about communication. Communication is going to be extremely key, and we'll talk about transparency and being open with both your employees and your clients as we move into the season. Implementation of the plan, getting the buy-in of your employees to help support that plan. And then ultimately, folks, as we all learned last tax season, you always have to be prepared for the unexpected. And that oftentimes can be the difference between a successful tax season and a tax season that is chock full of challenges. We do have a tip to share with you here, and something for you to consider as we move forward. I'm not going to spend much time on it today, but simply point out that CrossLink has established a relationship with PayJunction. You can go to our website, you can learn more, you can reach out to your CrossLink sales team for information if you want, but this is just simply to say that we do have a touchless payment solution available for you and your clients. Not only for in the office, but it does take remote payments. So that's something for you to consider if you don't have a solution in place already. All right. So as we move forward, the first thing we're going to cover, and we'll come back to these again, but the first thing we're going to cover is gathering the information. Look, folks, there's a lot of information out there, especially as we were talking earlier about Googling reviews. You can Google and get answers for anything. Make sure that when you're getting your information for your clients, get the indisputable, reliable resources that you can trust and that your clients can trust as well, whether it be national resources, state resources, or even your local resources, which sometimes are more relevant than what's going on nationally. Included in these, a couple of the national resources are things like the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. That might sound odd. We'll talk a little bit about what you can do with that information. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they make a number of things available to you, including checklists for opening your office, state by state. If you look on the right side of the screen here, they have a map that you can go into, and there's no way somebody like CrossLink or even yourself could know what's happening in each and every one of the states. However, you can go to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, click on the state, and they will give you the latest information available for your state. So that information is available to you as well. You can see their URL at the bottom. It will be included in the document that I'm going to send to you after this call. And then OSHA as well actually have a lot of good information, and we encourage you to take a look and see what components of that are applicable to your business as you move forward. Okay, and then not only do you want to make sure that you're accessing reputable information, you need to make sure you're accessing up-to-date information. What you knew last week, or what you knew last month, or what you knew when you reopened your business in June or July this year when your state came back online. Chances are that information's changed. So let's make sure that we're using the most up-to-date information, and that we're checking often as well. And again, these are national sources I'm sharing you with. For every national resource, there's a local resource. Check with your counties, check with your cities, check with your local chamber of commerces to know what resources are available for the region that you're in.
And John, if I could add, your last bullet point is so important, the important piece that you see at the bottom. Things are changing so quickly. And I can use an example. In the state that I'm in right now, we're going through a partial lockdown. We're going through something that is a step back, if you will. But literally this morning, I'm taking a look at the news, and this was enacted a little bit earlier this week, and already the legislature in the particular state that I'm located is already looking at how we can go ahead, or how they can help kind of mitigate that by having some restrictions lifted. So if I were to look at something at the beginning of this week and look at something by the beginning of next week, they could be two very different things, literally, with regard to how you can provide services to your customers. So, John, you make a wonderful point with regard to what's going on at the national level. That state-by-state graph that's provided for you, or piece that you see on the right, is wonderful, and always making sure that you're checking to see what's most relevant or most current is so very important during this time of change.
No question. No question. All right. So look, one of the things that we all want to do is we want to create a safe environment. And what each of us individually considers to be a safe environment can differ drastically. So as we do this moving forward, we want to make sure that we are considering the needs of our tax office, our employees, as well as our clients. So Steve, I'm going to let you go ahead and click forward for me here. I'm going to encourage each of you to go ahead and take the time to follow the CDC guidelines. They have very specific guidelines. If you go and look at their website, and we'll give you a link in the document I'm going to send to you. There's a link in there that actually has a checklist for what you should consider doing and checking off the box before you open up your office. Go ahead, Steve. All right. Look, OSHA requirements, they can be a challenge sometimes, no question. But it is important to make sure that you are following any applicable OSHA requirements. And in addition to that, once again, they are a good resource for making sure that you have information for keeping your staff safe and building that confidence. And we'll talk more about that as we move through this presentation, but building the confidence of your staff to come in on a daily basis as well as your customers. And with that, you want to make sure that you take the time to reconfigure your office with social distancing in mind. There's a lot of things you can do depending on where you're located, what your state requirements are. But I know here where I'm located that we've had to take considerations in our office to make sure that we've got the proper distance between individuals at their desks. We're not, even in our call center, we're not putting people right next to each other, on top of each other like you would typically in a call center. We're building in that social distancing to make sure that everybody, that we meet the requirements, but most importantly, that we keep everybody safe and that they're confident that they're safe as they move forward through the season. All right. Look, it's important to monitor both employee and client health as you go into the office. One of the things we do with our call center here is when people come in the morning, we go ahead and we take a moment and we take their temperature. Is that the end-all, be-all? That's debatable. And again, we're not really here to make a stand on that one way or another. Some people say it does, some people say it doesn't, but we do take it because if somebody does have a temperature, then we know that there's an issue that needs to be addressed and we don't want to expose the office. So Steve, go ahead and move forward here. One of the things that we know is that digital thermometers can be found online for under $30. Okay, it's a small investment, but if nothing else, it does provide comfort. I was telling Steve the other day, I went whitewater rafting over the summer, and it's in the middle of the mountains in North Carolina where we're going whitewater rafting, a rinky-dinky shack, and the first thing they do when you walk up there, and we're debating like, gosh, should we be out? Should we be doing this stuff right now with COVID out there? First thing they do is they take your temperature with a digital thermometer. Again, whatever your position on it is it did make us feel like they are taking the effort and they're taking the time to make us feel comfortable, and they're doing what they can do to not only to stay open, but to make me as a customer feel comfortable. And we encourage you to do the same or whatever is applicable for your business.
Just the persona that you're providing. I mean, people are going to see you differently by doing that type of thing, wherever they fall. As far as their personal beliefs are concerned, they're going to think that you are in control of the situation.
That's it. All right, and here's the other thing too. We can't be reactionary. As everybody, I don't have to explain to people on this call, you know, we are busy during a short period of time during the year. That's when we make our money, and any shutdown of the business presents a real challenge for the revenue for the business. during that period of time because you've got competitors next door, across the street, whatever it might be. What we do, encourage you to do, is proactively have a plan in place. And we'll talk about that here shortly. Have a plan in place in case you end up with a positive case either from one of your employees or from a customer that came into the office. Okay, so don't be caught off guard. Make sure you proactively have something in place on what you're going to do in both of those situations. All right, so here we are talking about the plan. Look, we try to be very open-minded about this. You have to take into considerations what your local environment is like, what your personal beliefs are in regards to some of this, as Steve talked about earlier, the persona that you want to put forward to your customers and the level of comfort you want to provide to them. But ultimately, whichever direction you go, to a certain extent, I've said this a couple times, it doesn't matter what I think about this. It matters how my customers feel, how the employees that are coming into the office feel. So we want to make sure that this plan makes everyone feel comfortable about the environment you've put forth. It's about comfort and confidence for your customers and employees. So consider the following. We know that we run our businesses on a tight budget, okay? You do need to take your budget into consideration in terms of what you're going to do when you talk about things like plexiglass shields or whatever else you may be considering. Budget is a very real concern. However, in conjunction with the budget, I would encourage you also to ask yourself, what is the potential revenue loss if you have to close down your office for 2 weeks because you have a positive case in the office, depending on what your local requirements are? That can be significant to your office. So yes, consider your budget, but also consider maybe spending a little bit more on of that budget this year because the revenue loss exposure is so much greater. All right. The other thing too is the office workspace has to be taken into account. We've heard a lot about social distancing over the last 9 months. Got to stay 6 feet apart. Do we have plexiglass shields? Look, if you're going to move things around, I recommend that you get in front of it early. Move them around now. Address your needs in the office space now. Don't wait till tax season starts. Don't wait till you start bringing in employees and training them on the software for the season. Get in front of it. Do everything you can to make that workspace comfortable. Again, not just for your customers, but for your employees who are coming into the office each and every day. Okay, here's the other thing too. Stock up now. I was really surprised. Remember early in the year, in the spring, there was a run on toilet paper, okay? It surprised me. I didn't realize that a run started again this week on toilet paper. Went to the grocery store yesterday, and you're only allowed to buy 1 package of toilet paper. It was small, so we thought, well, gosh, maybe we'll look online on Amazon. It's currently unavailable on Amazon, okay? Toilet paper is not necessarily what you need for the office, but what you do need things like masks, hand sanitizer, some of the other components that you might be considering putting in place for this season. Stock up now. Don't wait till the season starts, because at that point it could very well be too late. Okay? So with that, the tip we have is order early. I recommend going online, ordering now, doing whatever you need to do, whether it be the masks, whether it be hand sanitizer. Again, are you talking about putting out plexiglass shields? If you're going to do that, do it early. Don't wait till the end when everybody else is trying to. All right. And I will say one last thing on that. Is for depending on your business location and the requirements of your locale, some of those things may be mandatory and required. So you don't want to risk not being able to open your business because you didn't stock up early. Okay, we've talked a lot about this, and as a professional marketer and public relations person, this is extremely important to me, and it's something I live with. But you need to communicate. Okay, the best thing you can do is get employee buy-in by communicating with them and making sure that your customers are comfortable, and the transparency and your ability to communicate what you're doing to your employees, so that A, they understand all those policies and the safety procedures you have in place for the tax season, but then they can also help you enforce them, and they're behind them, and everybody's on the same page. And that comfort, the value of a happy employee is significant when dealing with your client. who in turn need to feel comfortable, and they need to know that you're communicating with them every chance you get about what you're doing for them for this upcoming season. We've got a tip on this one as well, which is don't forget all those things we were talking about earlier, as well as many more. You've got many ways to communicate with your customers. Whatever tools you use today, make sure you're using them to communicate to customers what you're doing to make them feel comfortable during the upcoming tax season, from your website, emails, as we talked about. Consider the out-of-office response, auto responses you have in place. Look, when they call and make their appointment, let them know what the expectations are. If the expectation is that they're going to wear a mask, let them know. Let's come prepared to use with a mask. Have office signage up, posters, whatever you can do to communicate to your customers what you're doing for them, and ultimately doing for them to make them feel comfortable in your office. Look, at some point we got to implement the plan, okay? And it's important, as we mentioned before, in communicating with your your employees, they've got to be on board, because they're going to have to help you implement and manage that plan as you go through the tax season. You know, if you have an office of more than a couple people, you're not going to be able to be in all corners. And you guys are amazing in terms of the effort and work you put in during the tax season. And you are at all places at one time, it seems like. But the honest answer is you can't be. And so with that, you need them in place as well. Going into the season, on the weekends, whatever cleaning service you use, whether you do it yourself or you hire a service, make sure that deep cleaning is taking place. And that plan includes the rearrangement of the furniture that we talked about earlier, because you don't want somebody calling you out on that. Those reviews we were talking about earlier, think of the restaurants you go to. A lot of people take the approach that, hey, I can go to a restaurant right now if I follow the proper social distancing. But you know what? If I go to a restaurant and it's packed and they're not following the social distancing protocols, a lot of people are doing a U-turn and leaving. Not only are they doing a U-turn and leaving, they're writing a negative review for that business online. So you need to take that into consideration for yourself as well. And then, of course, and we're going to keep hammering home on this, is just be proactive. Get the supplies you need now to make sure that both your employees and your clients are comfortable through the season. I'll use one example. Is if your policy is to have face masks and everybody must wear a face mask, occasionally you're going to get an employee that shows up without a face mask. You don't want to send them home, but you do need to make sure that they have that face mask on so that the client sitting across the desk from them are comfortable. So do you have an extra supply of face masks, disposable face masks that you can share with a customer that walks in the door without a face mask, or an employee that leaves theirs at home by accident? Okay, so make sure that you make everything available. Again, if you're doing those plastic partitions, we know a lot of people are. We understand they're not cheap, but start working with your vendors now. Maybe there's payment plans they can put in place for you, and it's going to take some lead time to get those installed. And then, as we talked about, bring those face masks in. They're cheap. You can buy a stack of 100 for $20 on Amazon, disposable face mask that you can share for everybody to keep everybody safe and comfortable in the office. All right. Ultimately, folks, it's the unexpected. Think of what happened in February, March of this past, or this current calendar year, this past tax season. The unexpected is going to happen no matter how prepared you are. We know you guys can go in and you can turn on your tax office, open up, and you're ready to go, and you can get it moving quickly and efficiently because you've been doing it for years. But then something happens and hits us out of left field like last year. You need to be prepared, okay? Be able to move forward. So when we talk about that, your personal success, the success of your business will depend on your adaptability, okay? Just go into the season knowing that you're going to need to make changes. You're going to need to be flexible. And as the tax season progresses, where we end may not be how we started. But I will say that the individuals and the tax offices that are prepared for that change are going to have a higher likelihood of success through the tax season than those that wait and are reactionary. Okay? Anytime you make changes, it's extremely important that you communicate those changes to your employees and to your customers. It's going to help. They appreciate the transparency. They don't want to walk in and be surprised and something new changed, okay? Transparency is extremely important in building the trust with both your staff and your customers. And look, guys, the honest answer is we're sharing this information with you based on the research we've done on a lot of the websites we were talking about earlier. But the fact of the matter is we're all learning, okay? And we're going to have to adjust. But those that can adjust, as I mentioned before, are going to have the advantage as we move forward. All right. Folks, what you see on your screen is a 3-page PDF. It essentially covers each of those steps that I just covered. A couple of you have been asked, and I haven't responded to the questions because I've been talking and presenting right now, but several of you asked, hey, is this information going to be made available? The answer is yes. There's going to be a couple of ways these are going to be made available for you. First of all, you're going to receive an email at the end of this call, before the day is out, that will include a link to download this PDF. So you will have this PDF with the information I just covered, including websites, the map, the link to the map, and some other important information will all be emailed to you. All right, so you'll have that information there. In addition, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sure to post that on our YouTube page, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the presentation, but you will have access to that as well. So with that, guys, the honest answer is it's not just your office, okay? There are many customers, many taxpaying customers that are going to ask you about doing their tax returns remotely. They expect remote options and mobile options these days. So what are you doing to make sure you're prepared for that? So we want to talk a little bit about what CrossLink makes available to you and your clients. So every year, more and more, and I'm sure every person on this call feels more and more questions about, hey, can I submit this to you over a mobile app? Can I submit this to you online? And as Steve mentioned, we want to make sure that we provide them the tools and we use the technology that's available. So as you're doing this, the customers are going to expect that any data they share with you is also secure, right? A lot of private information. So how are you doing that? And what are you doing as a tax office to expand your offerings? The good news is CrossLink can help you. Steve, let's go ahead and move forward here. First of all, our mobile apps. I want to make sure if you're not using TaxPass today, I do encourage you to talk to your CrossLink sales team member about it. You can see a screenshot, one of many screenshots that we have there. But with this, your customers can do the following. First of all, they can send you their tax information as well as the supporting documents and images through the TaxPass app, and then that will be made available to you through your work in progress screen, okay? So that information is available. So then you import all of that information into the client tax return and provide them with the information they need. You can complete this full process with your customers without them ever coming into the office, if that's what you and your customer choose to do. So that is a great option going into this season. And we're going to talk a little bit about this on this next slide. Oh, by the way, I should point out, if you as a taxpayer are looking for a kiosk mode so that individuals don't need to walk up to the reception desk to sign up and get their hand their information where they can load it, this can support that if you're running something like an iPad or some other tablet type solution in your lobby. All right, let's go ahead and move forward, Steve. What I want to talk about is remote signature capture. In addition to being able to utilize TaxPass to complete the returns remotely, we can also capture the signatures remotely. And it's important to know that this is something we've had available. However, in advance of the upcoming season, we recognize that the need for this is going to be greater. So we made a large financial commitment to install more equipment, more bandwidth, servers, and to expand on that technology and move it out so that it's available at a much higher rate, a higher volume, and higher quality for everybody moving forward. So with this, your clients can now go ahead and sign their documents anywhere, anytime, by an electronic signature, whether they're at home with a computer, if they're mobile and they're out there with their smartphone somewhere, or any other mobile device that they have with them. They can legally sign their documents and complete their tax return from a remote location. Okay, one of the things too, if any of you used TextLink Plus in the past, that was a paid service. That is now included with remote signature capture. And so as we built up the robustness of it and we've invested in the solution, we've also included other features such as TextLink Plus. So anybody that has questions on this, I encourage you to talk to your CrossLink sales team and they can share more information. But this is definitely something that's going to be important for you and your customers as we move towards the possibility of remote returns. All right,
So
Steve, at this
John,
point, I'm going to hand it back to you.
and I look forward to it. Thank you, John. So John took you through some of the best practices that are out there with regard to your office, as well as when you're working remotely. One thing I'd like to add, and we're going to do this at the end as well, when you're looking for supplies, and there's this recurring theme of be prepared, get out in front of it. One of the things that John and I really encourage is thinking outside the box. You know what? You can go and see that toilet paper is no longer on the shelves, but you have to consider all the different places you might be able to get toilet paper. It's really interesting. I wanted to get some sanitary wipes. I just wanted some wipes, and I could not find them. I couldn't find them at Costco. I couldn't find them at my local grocery store. I couldn't find it at my local at my local drugstore. But you know what? I could find wipes because I happened to be in a pet supply store, and there they were, sanitary wipes. So one of the things that we really encourage is you're going to come across obstacles. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit greater detail here in about 2-3 minutes, but never forget to start thinking of some of the other places you might find things. John has a great example, which he'll share at the end of this call as well. It's fascinating to think that, you know what, you think of the standard places to get things like masks, but you never think about an auto supply store. But you know what? You can find things at these things. So the person that is thinking outside the box, being creative, being proactive, is going to be the one that is prepared come season. The big piece of the whole thing is if you have to work with a fabricator with regard to plastic shields and those types of things, you really want to get on that one as quickly as you possibly can. Because guess what? If you're doing that in January, you're going to be late. And if you're late to the game, you lose in the game of tax preparation. We all know that. So let's take a look real quick at ramifications if you have a lax approach. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, a new normal means that doing things the way you've always done them could have very serious consequences. You could lose business. You could get fines and penalties. And on top of that, local government-driven shutdowns. All these are very, very real if you take the same approach that you've had in the past. The potential for building your personal brand may never be stronger than what you're going to see over the next 5 months. I said people are looking for confidence. They're looking for convenience. They're looking for your communication. They're looking for all of these things. But guess what? That'll give you an opportunity to build a brand like never before. The flip side of that, though, is the potential damage to your brand this year is also exceptionally high. Diligence. It comes down to diligence. And one of the things that we see that's very interesting is that people have tried and true methods, which I'll talk about here in just another couple minutes. But those tried and true ways of doing business in the past, they've been very successful for you. Some people are methodical and start getting prepared for the season in September. Some people got it down and they start preparing for the season in December. But the reality is that we have to take extra steps this year because there's all these different things that we haven't thought through. And it is a new year. It is a new normal. So diligence in your approach to all aspects of your business this year is going to be of extreme, and matter of fact, I'll say of paramount importance. You've got to put that at the very top of your list. So our closing thoughts. You know what? If we're going to put this all together, all the stuff that John has shared with you as far as best practices is concerned, all the things I talk about this new normal that's out there, let's think of a couple things. Success in the tax business has always been predicated on the idea of being ready on game day. Game day is when you open your offices, and those offices, if you're not ready and your competitor is, you will lose. People will walk by your office to go to the next one. So it has always been set, ever since I've been in this industry for the last 15 years, on the ability to be ready on that game day. Come January, you've got to be ready to open your doors for business. Now, historically, as I said before, experienced tax businesses, they get a rhythm. They get ready because they know exactly all the things that they need to get ready and have ready before that January time frame. But this is something that's never been out there before. So this year's going to be different. And think of it in these terms as something to take away from this call. Number one is that more pre-planning is absolutely required. It just is. And my hope is that even being on this call is an idea of pre-planning that you have, meaning that you're thinking about these things. Because if you wait until January, it will be too late. On top of that, proactive and ongoing communication strategies will be required. And contingency plans are going to be required. All of these things. And in fact, the ability to quickly adapt and pivot will be required. Look at these new requirements. They've never been in place for you as the tax professional before. And think of this. Who's your biggest competition? The big conglomerates that are out there, the H&R Blocks, the Jackson Hewitts, all those things. They're thinking of these things as well. So you need to be on top of this. That personal service that already separates you from what your competitors can do, it's going to be even more magnified this year. If you can do these things, be ready with your pre-planning, be ready with your communication, be ready with your contingency plan, be ready to quickly adapt and pivot as needed is going to play huge dividends for you. Regarding pre-season planning, two important things to watch for. Number one is for lots of different reasons, paralysis can occur. Meaning, you know what? It's too daunting. How am I going to get a hold of a plastic fabricator? How am I going to find sterilization wipes? How am I ever going to get enough masks in my office? Every place I turn literally is a dead end. One of the things you cannot allow to occur is paralysis. You've got to keep moving forward. And what that means is, you know what? You probably got an entire checklist of things to do. If one is closed, fine. You're going to have to continue on with the other things that you can do to prepare yourself. This is where you're going to start thinking of things like the social distancing aspect of your business. Maybe I'm in a position I'm in a part of the country where I can have a tent put up outside or something, which will create additional space. We're seeing restaurants today do things that we never thought they'd do before to stay in business, and they've been successful with those types of things, even in the coldest of climates. We've got to start thinking of things outside the box and not allow ourselves to be paralyzed with the idea that anything or everything is too daunting. And on top of that, as John and I were talking about recently, just a couple of minutes ago, obstacles are very real. They're going to happen all the time. But the greater you can think outside the box, the more successful you'll be. John, you had a great example when we were opening our own offices. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do. You know, it's kind of interesting, folks. When we were opening the offices in, I guess that would have been June when we opened back up, and I'm sure a lot of you face the same type of scenario, which is where do you go to find hand sanitizer, right? Hand sanitizer wasn't available, right? And it wasn't for a long time. Thankfully, now it's much more widely available than it was back then. But as Steve mentioned, he mentioned auto parts stores for wipes. We actually had one of our employees out of our California office that was in a smoke store picking up cigarettes of all things, and noticed that they had a whole bunch of hand sanitizer there. The strangest place. Last place you expect to find hand sanitizer. Whole bunch of hand sanitizer there. Bought a couple dozen of the little ones, distributed it through the office. So the point being there is keep your eyes open. If you can, order it online. As we know, you can get anything delivered from Amazon in a day or two these days. But a lot of times they're out of stock as well. So keep an eye open, a lot of non-traditional locations where you can find information. Again, think outside the box. What are your options?
Thank you, John. There's so many examples like this. And you know what? Be creative. Think through these things. You will come out the other end, for sure. The diligence is what's going to pay off. Because there'll be all these unknowns that never happened before that are going to occur this tax season, your clients will continue to look for your guidance. They really are. Presenting yourself as being confident, convenient, and consultative will positively differentiate your business. This is what we've been saying all along. I'll finish with this, and that is have a plan. John gave you a lot of the pieces to putting that plan together, then implement that plan, evaluate its relevance, and then adapt as needed. That is going to be how we're going to get through this upcoming year. And this is the exact same thing, even as the transmitting company ourselves. We're looking at these same things. We have plans, we're implementing, we're evaluating, and we're continually adapting to what the changing times have. There is a new normal out there, folks, but you know what? The people that can go ahead and adapt to that new normal are going to be the ones that are most successful, and I believe that to be all the folks that are on this call today. So that brings us to the end of this particular presentation. John, are there any questions that we can field?
Yeah, guys, and we encourage you to stay on because we've got a couple questions here. One of the questions we have is whether our TaxPass app, our mobile app, is available in Spanish. And unfortunately, at this point, it is currently only available in English, so we won't be able to provide that in Spanish for this year. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is still look at that, even if your clients are predominantly speaking Spanish. Still take a look at that and see if there's a way you can use it, because it does have great value for you. And Steve, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the tax app continues to be free on the downloads. So
not only is it free, we always take feedback from our customers, and you know what? That is a great piece of feedback with regard to what it is that we can put in for potential upgrades for next year. We'll certainly provide that as a request to our development team.
Correct. All right. I'm looking through some of this. We talked a little bit about the substantial investment that was made into the remote signature for this upcoming season. There are a couple questions on that front. If you have any further questions, I would refer you to your sales team, but understand that there was a substantial investment made in order to support what we anticipate being a significant increase in remote signatures for this upcoming season rather than a few here and there's. But I think at this point, Steve, I'm going through the questions, and I think we have covered most of them. So this next slide, I think, covers what we want to make sure each of you take away. In addition to what we covered today, is that this is the first of many webinars that we're going to be doing this season. We want to make sure that this information is available to you and your staff. So feel free to invite your staff to those webinars that are appropriate. But as Steve mentioned, he will be giving a presentation next week on IRS updates for the tax year. And it's going to be the important stuff that you're going to need going into the tax season. But then you'll probably want to come back and join us again in January when we do it, because there will be changes and updates in that time. But there's quite a bit of information that we're going to be covering over the course of the season and our preseason webinar series. So Steve, any color or anything additional you want to add to this, feel free.
Well, certainly the first one, the IRS updates, is in concert what we talk about as being knowledgeable. If people are looking, and they are, for further information, stimulus checks taxable, whatever it might be, as you attend this particular webcast that I'll be doing next week, you'll get a lot of information that you will be able to provide for your customers in real time. So we encourage not only that, but all the different ones that we have. We enjoy doing them. We enjoy hearing from you folks that are on the call. And we cannot emphasize the importance of these enough in preparation for the season.
All right. One of the questions that comes up here, folks, you can see the join the conversation slide. And in particular for this, I would join you guys, encourage you guys to join the conversation across any medium that's important to you. But in particular, I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing a couple of other questions and comments come through, and I'm doing my best to get to them before we close out the presentation. But there are questions about the TaxPass mobile app and how do you use it? Where do you get more information? Go to the YouTube page. And if you go on the YouTube page, there's a video specifically on the TaxPass mobile app. So I encourage you to take the time, watch that video. A couple of you have already, I'm so glad to hear this, have already said you're going to subscribe. Again, that's not for me that you subscribe, that's for yourself, so that when you subscribe, you get the notifications when these new videos go up. We do a lot of these videos, not all of them, but we do a lot of these videos in both English and Spanish. Matter of fact, Steve, if you go back to the prior slide, you'll see that some of these webinars are in Spanish. So that same team that's given the presentation of these webinars in Spanish is also recording some of the trainings and other videos that you see online in Spanish as well. Again, I want to be clear, not all of them are in both English and Spanish, but a lot of them are, and I encourage you to go ahead and take a moment to look at those. All right.
TaxPass is a good play. It really is. It's so important, again, in this using technology piece. Very, very important to note that what's new with CrossLink for 2021, we will touch on the latest and greatest with regard to the TaxPass mobile app. So don't hesitate to attend that one, or as John said, you can always look in the library, our CrossLink library of different videos that we have. We'll have information for you there as well.
And folks, as we begin to wrap up here, I do want to say that if we didn't get your questions, please respond to the email we're going to send you. We'll make sure we get a CrossLink team member to answer your questions that you have. But I do also want to acknowledge that this is a unique year. And not only is it a unique year, it's early for tax offices to be coming online, and we got the holidays coming up next season. Long-winded way of saying that we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. Let us share some of our thoughts with you. Again, we're not saying anybody has to do any one of these. We're just sharing what we perceive to be best practices, and you can pick and choose what's appropriate for you and your business, but that you can take this information, you can share it, and we recognize that it is a very busy time. Hopefully, we do get the opportunity to talk to a few of you next week when we do provide the first set of tax updates to you. But if we don't, we all have a lot to be thankful for this upcoming season. And on behalf of myself and the rest of the CrossLink team, I'd like to say that we're very thankful for you and the opportunity to work with you as well. Steve, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to take us home.
That was a beautiful send-off, John. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know how valuable it is. And as I said earlier in the presentation, time is a very important commodity. We hope that you got things out of this that you can use to prepare yourself for the season. And I always kind of start and finish the same way over the 15 years I've been in this industry. He who's prepared or she who's prepared come game day wins. This year, it's just going to take a little bit more pre-planning, a little bit more thinking outside the box, a little bit more thinking of contingencies. But by doing so, you will put yourself in a position of positive differentiations. Congratulations for being on this call. Congratulations on all of your efforts out there. We think that it's going to be a great tax season for people that are ready, and we believe you folks will be those. So again, thanks for your time. And with that, we'll go ahead and we'll sign off today.
Thank you very much.